topic to kind of go over. Who had behaviorism?
I did.
We did.
Sorry, Susanna and Deborah.
Hi, Susanna.
How'd it go?
I'm not really sure what you wanted us to do with this.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
What is it we're supposed to be telling you about? What behaviorism
What is behaviorism?
I think it's training as far as with negative and positive reinforcement, basically.
That's what we were coming up with.
Perfect. And can you give me a type of example on when you might see something like this?
Well, we're not.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Anyone? Oh, so when we started, I know when our RD started, we had lots and lots of, if you guys will all do this, we'll get gift cards. And I guess that worked because it kind of, everybody started doing their own things. When we were talking this morning, Deborah and I said, there's no way I would use negative reinforcement training a new PCC. I didn't do that with my kids. I'm certainly not going to do it with an adult. But positive reinforcement, absolutely. Not necessarily a cookie, but, you know.
It's just giving, like I suggested that if the new girl, you know, is having difficulties, she's overwhelmed, you know, just giving them that verbal or proverbial pat on the back can calm them all down. I could hear that in their voices when I was telling them, you know, that they're doing a great job, you know, keep up the good work.
Right. Do we get a gold star?
Uh-huh.
We did good.
Absolutely.
We did good, right?
You did great.
Behavioral stuff. We do good, we get a gold star.
No, go ahead.
I just found out about this meeting, so I don't have a topic.
That's okay.
Okay.
I'll make you present on all of them.
Awesome. Sounds great. I'm sure I'll get a gold star, too.
Absolutely. It's important that you notice the positive reinforcement and that you notice the negative reinforcement that gets paired with it as well. Negative reinforcement, while I don't personally prescribe to it as being a very good method, it can be a very good motivator in order to get people to do what you need them to do. For example, say you have a PCC who keeps making the same mistake over and over and over and over again, which I'm sure that we run into them. What is one of our first inclinations that we have? What do we do?
They weren't paying attention.
And then how does that filter back to the PCC when they keep asking you this question repeatedly?
So they're just not really not paying attention, or they have no like they're just not there. They're not at work. They're not connected to their job.
Or they don't get it.
Maybe they could, you know, encourage them to take some sort of notes as we discuss it with them, so that they, and if there's anything else, is there something else I can help you with to help you remember it?
I think maybe sometimes you have to approach the way you're teaching them differently.
Oh, this is true. Take go a different way around it. Because, you know, we're all used to doing it, so we kind of like already know how to do it. It's when you have to train somebody else, it's like, okay.
Right, you don't even think about the things you do.
Exactly, it just comes second nature.
Yep. And we can remind them that if they keep doing it, repetition will make it stronger.
Exactly.
And I think, too, you can go back to them and just say, okay, at what point during this process of, you know, you pick up the phone, you enter the new patient,
the next couple of days.
At what point is it not clicking anymore? Like, where are you losing that? Well, maybe.
I think about 4:15. I'm going to try to set up 3:30.
Are we still?
Hello?
Okay. Just a side note, if you are going to have side conversations, I don't mind. Just put yourself on mute so that way you don't distract everybody else in the conversation. So if you have a patient walk in or something like that, just put yourself on mute real quick. Go ahead, Tracy.
I'm sorry. I just was saying that, you know, maybe kind of go back to the beginning and say, okay, I know you're getting it here, but like at what point is it like slipping away from you? At what point are you no longer understanding it so that we can start from there instead of continually maybe going back over the stuff they know, try to figure out at what point that it's not clicking and then go
That makes sense.
to that point.
I agree.
Yes.
Well, and I think they need to understand how the mistake affects the whole cycle of sale, and sometimes that seems to help if you can let them, if you can explain to them how with the mistake that they are making, how it triggers down and how it affects other situations.
In the past, when I've trained people, sometimes I'll ask them to teach me. Show me how you're doing it. Teach me. Like, pretend that, you know, it's reverse. And then sometimes that will help you find the flaw because it's putting you into their world, into their line of thinking, and then it allows you to see where they're missing something.
That's good.
That's good.
I like that.
So
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I heard a really neat comment that's going to move us along into the next one about cycle of sales and having the PCC begin to understand how their actions affect the organization. Before we dive into developmental, which that turned out to be a perfect segue, what questions do you have on behaviorism?
I have a question, well, kind of a scenario. I do have one PCC that I went and I did some extra training with her, and what I found is that, you know, learning new stuff and even stuff over the phone, she just gets frustrated really easy and kind of wants to just throw her hands up in the air and she kind of misses the information and the process of what we're trying to go over. How, my question would be is that, you know, I always try to approach that with, you know, positive reinforcement and just go over it with her as much times as I possibly can until, you know, she understands it. But if you have a PCC that's just overly frustrated, you know, when it comes to something that may be a little bit harder or something that her, you know, HCP hasn't let her do yet or she's not sure. And that's just kind of what I've been running into when it comes to training with this one particular person.
You know, too, sometimes
So, I'm sorry. Do you mind if I field this one?
Yep.
I want you to hold on to that question until we get done with this presentation, and then I want you to answer it yourself. Because
Okay.
I think when we get done, you're going to have about 6 different ways that you can go about trying to address this, and it'll be a lot better for you to come up with it than us to give you the answer.
Perfect. Sounds good.
All right. So who had developmental?
I did. Ellen.
All right. What can you tell me about it?
About developmental?
Yeah.
The way I look at developmental is everybody has a different way of learning. And so trying to figure out what is the best style for each person. And some people are more step-by-step, hands-on, one step at a time. And then there's other people that kind of get bored with that and kind of want a huge overview and kind of go through things on their own, learn it first, and then go through it. So it's really just figuring out what learning style each person has.
And I also, everybody, like you're saying, Ellen, this is Brandy, everybody does something or, grew up different. Like I was raised a certain way, someone else might be raised a certain way. So work ethic might be different. Their way about, going and tackling different things is going to be different than maybe mine would be. So I have to kind of reprogram my thinking to help them learn it because we're not all the same.
That's very true.
So, maybe I'm,
really enthusiastic and excited. Someone else might be kind of just more mellow. So like Ellen said, we have to kind of conform to maybe how they learn better or learn best at doing something.
That's a good point.
There's one important thing that I want to call out specifically with developmental, and I'm going to throw it back to you guys, is this process is also designed to be seen as an aging of a sense. When you first come into an organization, you're not entirely too sure what's going on. You can see yourself as being a baby, for instance. But the more time that you spend in the organization, the more time that you grow and have time to learn what's going on, the more that you develop and mature as a PCC. It just takes time in order to get there. And in order for us to be effective as trainers, we need to be able to recognize that time is an important issue that we need to factor in along with this, along with different learning styles, to be sure not to discount that at all. So based on this developmental, what do you think might be a good way to develop a training around a PCC?
Start with the basics.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, the beginning to the end, yeah.
because you can't teach them something that they learn in the beginning and then, you know, just the basic stuff and then kind of throw something deeper in there and then kind of go back to near the beginning again and then go, oh, and then you got to do this too. I mean, I think starting in the beginning with the basics of we do it, you got to build that foundation. So this is where we build our foundation by making sure that when we enter patient information and we enter a new patient into cycle, that all the information is correct so that we have, you know, a good base to start from, so that you're not having to keep continually jump back, you know, oh crud, I forgot to put this in there with that. So if you do it kind of step by step and get the easy stuff out of the way, I mean, to me that's a good way of doing it.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
The one
I feel
thing
like if
that
they start to learn why they're doing things, then it's going to make sense that they need to finish it all. You know, it's like, well, if you don't put this in, then we don't have it when it comes to this step and this step. So if you start from the beginning, this is what we do, and this is why we do it, so that it makes more sense as it gets deeper.
And how it all ties in together.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and for me, I think one key thing that I look at is signs of them just being overwhelmed with so much information and learning
Absolutely.
to identify that and then how to rectify it and how to work them through that. Because there is a lot of information that they have to absorb in a short period of time.
I'm finding a problem with the real slow offices because they're not doing it all the time. It's not repetitive.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the PCCs that are real busy offices are catching on a lot faster.
Because they have that repetition thing going.
Right.
But I can understand if you don't see a patient, if you're not doing it on a daily basis, and all of a sudden it comes back to you 3 weeks later.
Yep.
You have to do something, and that's happening in some of our offices. It's, you know, you have to go back to the SOP, and you have to kind of, which is fine, and read through it, but it's not going to come as naturally.
Yeah.
Oh, and I don't think there's anything wrong with suggesting to them, you know, the ones that are not as busy, you know, and I've done this to where if I know that, you know, this is like the third time or fourth time that I've had to explain something to them, just to kind of throw out there, you know, to suggest that they take notes. And sometimes when they take notes and they put it in their own words, they understand it better than they do coming from the SOPs. It's the same thing, it's just the way it's worded and how each individual understands it differently.
Right. And as long as they get it to where they are doing it the correct way, the connect way, then if it's whether by their notes or by reading an SOP, as long as they're doing it right, you know.
Good conversation. I think we came up with some pretty good ideas to run from that. What questions do you have if there's anything lingering on developmental? Silence is good. Okay. Who had cognitive?
I did.
All right, Tracy, why don't you tell me about it?
Hey, where's my partner who's supposed to help me with this?
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, good.
Can you just want to read what we have in the email?
Yeah. We talked about this earlier today, and oh boy, I got to find it. It's basically, oh my gosh, you know what?
You want me to start?
Yeah, it's basically, well, Carrie and I were talking. I actually sent Carrie an email just to kind of help me out here. Learning to use thinking to learn, like how a person processes the information. So tell them and let them kind of sit back and let it marinate and have them go, oh, okay, all right, I understand that. So, or another thing I would think, you know, you read something and then, again, take your notes or put your notes in there to help you remember what you learned.
And some of the tools for cognitive learning are you can ask the person to rephrase what you just told them in their own words, or have them explain how they would implement the process the way they were just taught. In the script, one of the example that they used was pausing between questions to give the answer a chance to formulate a response based on what they just learned.
Gold star. Everybody gets a gold star anyway, but that was a particularly fantastic answer. Great job. Based on the definition that was given for cognitive, how have you responded when you've had a teacher do things like that?
I know personally I'm actually a really cognitive learner. I'm a critical thinker, so this is my kind of comfort zone there. And that's, I think, probably why it goes back to when I say have the person teach you what you just taught them, because it gives you a chance to see how they're interpreting the information that they're getting.
How about anybody else on the call? Have you had experience being taught like this before?
Sometimes it frustrates me because I think, am I overthinking it? Am I putting too much thought into it? Because this is not how I learned. I learned by being shown. You know, just show me how to do it. I don't really like reading. If I have to read, I will, but I still want a picture along with it. Like, I want to be able to do it at the same time. So I kind of sometimes go into a panic mode, like, all right, they're not saying anything, so crap.
So what can we learn from these two different stories that were just told?
It goes back to that figuring out how they learn best.
Yeah, everybody learns different.
No worries, Selena. All right. That one went rather quick. Does anybody have any questions on cognitive?
It's because I had a great partner.
You guys,
oh, me
great.
too. Thank you.
I definitely could not have said it better myself. We're not going to do that. We'll do one later. All right. Who had social cognitive? Anybody besides Selena have it?
That may have been mine, but I didn't get the email, so I apologize.
That's okay. So you're not ready to present then?
Not exactly.
All right, I guess I can fill in for this one. Sure. So Selena had this, and unfortunately she's on a call right now. But social cognitive behavior is learning through observation. And that's pretty much spot on. This is basically the group think. So when you're working in an office with a bunch of different people, the PCC in that office is going to tend to start picking up the habits that are in that office, whether good or bad. It's just being immersed into that culture. If they work with another PCC and they say, this is the way we've always done it, then that's the way that PCC is probably going to start doing it, regardless of whether or not that's the right way or not. Sorry, I'm looking in the chat. That wasn't me making like I said something very profound. No,
Okay.
I am not that pompous,
You're
don't
very
worry.
excited about that statement.
I know, right? Everything that I say is gold.
Give them a star.
The big thing to take away from social cognitive is that people learn from their environment. They're learning from the other people that are there. If they have positive enforcers around them, it's going to be a better environment for them to work in. They're going to want to go to work. They're going to want to try and do better. If they work in a bad environment, chances are it's not going to be a very happy, worker-friendly experience for that PCC. Anything that they're learning from you, if you're doing something wrong, not you per se on the phone, but if they're learning from somebody how to do something incorrectly, that will continue. Does anybody have any experience being in a situation like this where you kind of picked up from other people on what you were supposed to do or not?
Yeah.
Whether it was right or wrong?
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
I was about to say, I hope everybody has been in that situation at least once. What is a way that you can combat it as being a trainer? That if you notice a PCC starting to slip, how do you think you can go about and using your training and mentoring ability to make them feel better?
Yeah, I think we just have got to remind them that we have procedures in place for a reason, and that these procedures need to be followed in order for there to be, everything to run smoothly and to run correctly. It just makes it easier for everybody else. But that's why these, these SOPs, these operating procedures, that's why they're in place, so that.
Well, you can.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You can also tackle it as like a coaching thing too. People are very interesting on when you approach certain things of how they receive that information, especially when they've been doing something for a very long time, and then somebody comes in and is wanting to change everything even though they've had this process. And how I've tried to do it with one of my PCCs is I tell her, I say, oh, this is just a coaching experience, and this is our protocols, and this is just a way to, get you back on track and, make sure we're following procedures. And I've had a pretty good response that way as well. That's all.
I think that's a fantastic idea.
Because it's all in the wording on how people receive information. Like if we're like, no, you have to do this because, this is what the SOP says, they almost might feel attacked in a way. I try to approach it in a sense where, let me just go ahead and give you some coaching. If this could be an easier way for you to do it this way, and this is how it says on my Connect, but, just let me go ahead and give you that coaching aspect. And then, it kind of is received a little bit better. It seems a little bit lighter when the training does happen. That's all. That's all I got.
I think, too, if you have somebody who felt really singled out, you can address the issue to, like, your whole group as a whole. Be like, hey, just noticing this and just want to address the ... And then maybe that person, because sometimes, you know, if somebody is really struggling, they seem to feel like you're constantly telling them they're doing something wrong.
And then they get more frustrated.
So, right. So if you if you just address it broadly to everybody, whether everybody is doing it that way or not, it doesn't make them feel so singled out.
I had to do that this past week with our referrer friends because I've got several people that just are not doing it right or they're not getting it. So I just sent out a blanket email, just reminding them how it needs to be done, and I did a screenshot and with arrows and just kind of showed them what I was talking about so that it would click in their mind. Oh, that's what she's talking about. When I was
did you get an email about not putting refer friends in letters also?
Not putting refer friends in letters. What do you mean?
We're not allowed to put refer friends in any.
So we can't mail those buck slips out when we send a thank you?
Not the buck slips, but when the patient comes into the clinic, the refer a friend, it's different from the buck slips.
I don't know what a buck slip is. We don't have one. And has anyone started in Region 114? We do twice monthly meetings with our PCCs, like a half hour on the phone.
No, but I would love to do that.
No. Me
we
too.
started doing that and discussing. We've done 2 so far, and we started discussing topics that kind of come up frequently. So I have a list that I kind of keep a list of, and then we kind of go over them.
That's a good idea.
That's a good
I
idea.
Like that. Are we allowed to implement that ourselves, or is that something that comes
Herschel I don't know, I implemented it with Herschel.
We do it.
Yeah, that would be something that I'd reach out to your RD about because it's going to be region specific.
Because that's actually one of the goals I put in my self-evaluation that I'd like to have regular
We
meetings
started doing, like I said, we've done 2 so far, and we're going to do them like the second Tuesday and the 4th Tuesday of the month. And, we went as far as like appointment types to, warranty dates, about community events we talked about, different things that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll prime the pump. I'll talk with Mitch and get it on the action plan for what?
That brings out the point of not singling either one of them out.
Yeah,
either,
right. Well, that's why I mentioned
it. As a group. Yeah, that's really good.
And I think it gives you a chance to also highlight the good things that are happening. Like,
right,
we had 100% compliance in our 2-week trials, and I was like, I put out this email with like balloons, and I'm like, you guys are so great. Look at this 100% compliance and da da da.
Right, so that's something that you could bring up even in your meeting, just
yeah,
like
I think that's really neat. I like that.
So I'm going to bring up with Mitch about getting this on the action plan for next week so the RDs can be aware of it. If you could wait until next week to start talking to your RDs about getting a PCC meeting going on, I'd really appreciate it.
She'll
just
come
make
to us. She's pretty
life a little bit easier for everyone.
Didn't mean to spur anybody into that, sorry.
No, you're not spurring anybody into it. You're making me do my
Yeah.
job. There's a difference. But this actually leads into our next topic, so I want to move there. But before we go on, questions on social cognitivism? Good stuff. I thought we did really well on that. Who had constructivism?
It was Sherry.
It was Sherry.
It was you.
No, I
didn't have it. We're going, what the heck is it? And we're going, I have
Talk about singling out someone.
Well, it's because we both had it.
She really kind of threw me under the bus there, didn't she?
We both had it. It's building on top of one another, pretty much, like, kind of like the building block. You have to start here to continue on.
Just a strong foundation. That's what I get out of it, is just a strong foundation. And you build from there, and it takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes tolerance.
Yeah, that was one of the things that you all were making pretty big comments about during the behaviorism portion of being patient. I don't think I called it out specifically, but everything that you talked about of waiting, going through it 3 or 4 times and just going, all right, you're going to get it. It's okay. You are the foundation for this group that's coming through.
Sherry's really good at that.
Oh,
Sherry's really good at everything.
She's very good at patience and understanding, and so if I can't have it, then I have to let her have it.
well,
There's
thank you.
certain people that won't talk to me.
Patience. Patience is a virtue.
And that's something that you all are responsible for doing. You are that framework. You are the base. When they have any issues, they're going to be coming to you to figure out how to get it fixed. And they're looking to you for that help and support, which I know all of you are going to be absolutely fantastic at, because it sounds like most of you have already taken the initiative and are doing the stuff that you should have been doing anyway, which I couldn't ask for anything more. I love when I have proactive people. That's really it for constructivism. It's a very easy topic, and all it is just building the people up. Any questions, comments?
No.
All right. Last but not least, and sorry that I'm kind of pushing through this, but like I said, we're on a bit of a time constraint
Don't be
here, so
sorry
I
for
want to make
that.
sure we get through everything. All right. Whoever had this one, I apologize because this is probably the hardest one of them all. Who had sociocultural?
It's not on our agenda.
Oh, it probably isn't because I left it off because it is the hardest one of them all.
So that's
Okay.
yours, right?
This was Julie's, right?
I'd hope not.
All right. So from the picture, has anybody watched the Bozo show before?
I did.
Besides
No,
Cindy,
no.
Okay.
I'm
Scary.
So Bozo is a clown. He had a television show on WGN for, I don't know, probably about 40, 45 years. And he had this game at the end that he played called the Grand Prize Game. And from the picture here, he had 6 buckets that were lined up. And in the 6th bucket, he would put a crisp new $100 bill. And if you toss the little ping pong ball that's in front of the Z bucket there into the last bucket, you won the $100. And there were prizes along the way. Now, getting into the first 2 buckets there, that's pretty easy. It's not too hard. You barely have to bend over in order to get it in. Then you have buckets 3 and 4. Buckets 3 and 4, it's a little challenging, but not too bad. It's manageable. Then you have buckets 5 and 6, where that's actually kind of far away, and you wouldn't be surprised if you bounce the ping pong ball out. Making sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. How sociocultural works is there's a theory in it called zone of proximal development. And it's a really fancy term that you're probably not going to remember after this, and I don't blame you if you don't. But what that says is you can look at those buckets as 3 zones. 1 and 2 is 1, 3 and 4 is 1, 5 and 6 is 1. And if you have a task for a PCC, for example, that's too easy, it's going to go into bucket 1 and 2. They're not going to be challenged. They're going to be distant. It just doesn't really matter to them. Even if it's a very, very important task, if they don't see it, it just doesn't matter. 3 and 4, those are the ideal ones where you want to have your tasks and skills reside. So as you're building along, you want to make sure that it's challenging, but not too challenging for them not to follow it. If it is too challenging for them to follow it, you fall into that 5 and 6 bucket, where it's just too hard. No matter really what you do, it's not gonna come to them. It's just gonna be lost right over their head. That's really the basis of what sociocultural is talking about. So I think we all have been in a situation where we've been given a task that was way too easy and we were bored with it, and given a task that was way too hard and we couldn't do it and just got frustrated, right? So how can we take our training, so that nice little packet of junk that I give you, and you need to teach PCCs within a week, how can you take that packet and make it into something that fits into those 3 and 4 buckets?
I think kind of by stressing that I might be wrong here, but by everything you do is important. and it's no matter how menial it may seem, it's still very important.
That I always did was when I was in the process of teaching someone something, I asked them right up front that when we go over something, if there's a part that they don't understand, to stop me and say, okay, I don't understand it, and then we will re-go over it before we go on to the next. And that was always very effective for me. That they
How would you readdress the topic? Would it be explained to you first, and then you'd go back in and do it on your own?
What do you mean? Okay, so no, what I would do, and it wasn't so much with Connect Hearing, it was in my previous job that I had, and I had to do a lot of training. And I found that as I would go over things, you know, they would say, yep, I got it, yep, I got it, yep, I got it. Well, you get down to number 5, and they don't have a clue what number 2 is because they really didn't get it. So I kind of put the brakes on everything and says, okay, wait a minute, I got to do this differently. And so I had like a template, you know, for my own self. This is the areas that we have to cover, and this is the steps that we take, which is kind of like our SOPs. And I would ask them that at any point with one of the instructions, if they don't understand it, to stop me and say, okay, I really don't understand what you mean by that. And then we would go over it at that point, go over it again, so that they understood step 1 before they moved on to step 2. Because it all fits together, and they have to understand the first step before they can fulfill and succeed in all the steps. They need to understand it from the beginning. That's a lot of silence.
I think everybody's taking it in.
It worked for me.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm not the one that's going to be out in the field teaching. So.
People in 3 months to do a job that I had been doing for 25 years. So I had to figure out an easy way of doing it that worked for everybody. And that was the most effective for me.
What about anybody else?
Again, it's kind of like the trickle-down effect. It's what the PCC learns is going to affect everybody else in the office. So if they are learning it correctly, then things should run more smoothly versus if they're not getting it and saying they're getting it, and then it comes to when they're there alone, then it's going to throw a wrench in.
I think we have an advantage in what we do because we do a lot of one-on-one training, and it lets you really personalize how you're training somebody. I know when I'm helping, when I'm training, I like to kind of read the person a little bit. I want to see, do they have a blank stare? Do they look like they're uncomfortable? Because sometimes people will tell you just by that body language or how they're answering your question or interacting with you, you can kind of tell that they're saying they're getting it, but they're not getting it.
The light's on, but no one's home.
Yeah, or something like that. And then I think another thing that I do is I like to show somebody how to do something, and then I like them to show me. And I know I've said that several times, but I've found that it works. And it gives you a chance, too, when you're approaching the next subject of what method is working for them. Because if you're just sitting there and, like you were saying, you're good with the pictures. If you show you a picture and show you how to do it, then good, you're set. But the next person might be, wait a minute, I need to just watch you do it and then do it. Or, you know, I need you to read me the directions while I do it. Or, you know what I'm saying? So you kind of got to find that person's comfort level in their learning, and then before you can move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
I agree with that. Personality, knowing the person, getting to know them and their personality and how they react to the things that you tell them. I do agree with that. Makes a big difference.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to stop us here because we have about a minute and a half left, and I want to debrief everybody.